The orange juice hit her like a slap. Cold, sticky, and sharp with pulp, it splashed across her forehead, slid into her eyelashes, and streamed down her cheeks in humiliating rivulets. A few drops landed on the polished stone floor and looked almost neon against the elegant gray. The entire lobby of Vantaspire went silent, like someone had yanked the sound out of the air. Lena Marlowe didn't flinch. She didn't gasp. She didn't throw her hands up. She simply blinked once, slow, letting the juice drip off her lashes, and then lifted her fingers to wipe her eyes as if she were clearing rain from a windshield. Across from her, the woman holding the empty cup wore triumph like perfume. "Oops!" the woman said loudly, turning her wrist as if she'd simply spilled by accident. My hand slipped. So clumsy. But honestly, you were standing too close. People like you never understand personal space. People like you. The phrase landed harder than the juice. Lena looked down at her damp sweatshirt, cheap, faded, and intentionally unremarkable, and then back up at the woman's face. The woman was small, glamorous, and dressed like she'd been styled for a magazine cover. Her hair shone in perfect waves. Her lips were a glossy berry color. The diamond at her throat flashed every time she moved, as if it enjoyed the attention. Her name was Celeste Rowan, though Lena doubted Celeste introduced herself with her last name, unless she was trying to crush someone with it. Celeste lifted her chin and scanned the circle of receptionists, security guards, and passing tenants who had frozen mid-step. "What?" she snapped at the onlookers. "Don't stare. Handle it. Get her out of here, now." A security guard shifted uneasily, glancing from Celeste to Lena. His hand hovered near the radio clipped to his shoulder, but he didn't press it. He didn't move. Lena watched him. She watched all of them, the way their eyes flicked to Celeste's suit, then back to Lena's worn sneakers, like they were trying to decide which person mattered more. Celeste followed their gaze, noticed the hesitation, and her mouth twisted. "Are you serious?" she barked. "I said remove her. She's making the lobby look cheap." Lena's fingers paused at her cheek. Juice slid down her jawline, warm now against her skin. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm enough to be eerie. "That wasn't an accident," Lena said. Celeste's smile widened, cruel and bright. And you're going to regret it." For a heartbeat, Celeste looked amused. Then she laughed, a sharp sound that echoed off the high ceiling. "Oh my God, did you hear that?" Celeste turned to the receptionist desk like she was performing. "She thinks she can threaten me in my husband's building." Lena's eyes didn't change. That was the part that made people uncomfortable. Most victims begged or snapped or cried. Lena simply stared like she was taking measurements. Celeste stepped closer until her perfume, something expensive and sweet, collided with the citrus smell on Lena's clothes. "My husband runs Vantaspire," Celeste said, each word clipped. "Miles Rowan, director of operations. Everyone here knows who he is. Everyone here knows who I am. And you?" Celeste's gaze slid down Lena's outfit with open disgust. "You look like you crawled out of a laundromat." Lena's lips pressed together as if she were holding back a thought too sharp to release yet. Behind Celeste, the receptionist, a young man with a neat haircut and nervous eyes, started to say something. "Mrs. Rowan, Celeste snapped her fingers at him without looking. "Don't speak unless I ask you to. Call my husband." "I already tried," the receptionist squeaked. "He's in a meeting." "Then interrupt it," Celeste said. "If he's actually in a meeting, he'll survive. This is more important than whatever nonsense he's doing." Lena finally moved her hand away from her face. Juice had soaked into the cuff of her sleeve. It clung to her skin. She glanced at the marble floor where drops of orange had splattered like tiny bursts of paint. "What's your name?" Lena asked the receptionist. The receptionist blinked. "Me?" "Yes," Lena said. He swallowed. "Evan." Lena nodded once, filing it away. "Evan, don't interrupt his meeting." Celeste's head snapped toward Lena. "Excuse me?" Lena's voice stayed level. "You heard me?" Celeste stared as if she'd just witnessed a dog stand up and speak. "You're telling my staff what to do?" Celeste asked, incredulous. "I'm asking him not to," Lena corrected. Celeste turned to Evan with a glare so intense he shrank back. "I pay your salary," she hissed. "Do it." Lena's eyes flicked to Celeste. "Do you?" Celeste's brows drew together. "What?" Lena let the silence stretch just long enough to make the air heavy. "Do you pay his salary?" Lena asked again, almost politely. Celeste made a dismissive noise, as if the question was beneath her. My husband does. Which means I do? That's how marriage works. That's how money works. That's how you think it works, Lena said. Celeste's cheeks flushed, anger blooming fast. Listen, you little... Lena's phone vibrated in her pocket. She didn't reach for it. She didn't glance down. She simply kept watching Celeste, steady as a locked door. Celeste leaned in, lowering her voice in a way that was meant to sound threatening. You want to know what's going to happen? Security is going to drag you out. Then I'm going to have them scrub the floor where you stood. And if you ever show your face here again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Lena smiled faintly, and for the first time, the smile looked like a blade. Go ahead, Lena said. Celeste recoiled a fraction, startled by the lack of fear. Then her pride surged back, louder. Marcus! Celeste shouted, whirling toward the security guard with the radio. Are you deaf? Remove her! The guard, Marcus, apparently, looked trapped. His eyes darted to the cameras in the corners of the ceiling. One of the other guards shifted beside him like he wanted to disappear. Marcus cleared his throat. Ma'am, if you could just step outside. Lena turned her head slightly, meeting his gaze directly. Marcus, she said, as if they were old acquaintances, don't! The guard stiffened. His eyes widened, shock flashing across his face. He hadn't told her his name. No one had. Celeste noticed. What is this? Celeste snapped. Why does she know your name? Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't. The whole lobby felt like it had tilted, and everyone could sense it even if they didn't understand why. Lena took one slow step forward. Juice dripped from the hem of her sweatshirt onto the marble, making soft taps that sounded too loud in the silence. Celeste lifted her chin again, refusing to back away. You're trying to intimidate me? She demanded. In my home? Lena's gaze swept the lobby, the white stone, the art on the walls, the scent of luxury pumped through invisible vents. Her eyes returned to Celeste. This isn't your home, Lena said. Celeste's laugh came out wrong, more strained than before. Oh, sweetie, you don't get to decide that. Lena's phone buzzed again, longer this time. She still didn't check it. Instead, she reached into her tote bag, canvas, scuffed, the kind of bag people assumed held groceries, and pulled out a folded document envelope. Celeste's eyes narrowed. What's that? You pulling out fake papers? Is this some scam? Lena didn't open it. She just held it in her hand, the way someone holds a match without striking it yet. Evan, the receptionist, stared at the envelope like it was radioactive. Ma'am, he whispered, barely audible. Are you okay? Do you need... I'm fine, Lena said. She looked at Celeste again, and her voice softened, almost regretful. You're loud, Lena said quietly. You're confident. You're used to winning because people are afraid of you, but you made one mistake. Celeste's eyes flashed. And what mistake is that? Lena's words landed with chilling precision. You attacked the one person in this city who doesn't need to fear you, Lena said. Not now, not ever. Celeste stared, then scoffed. Who do you think you are? Lena didn't answer the question the way Celeste meant it. Instead, she turned to Evan. Evan, Lena said, call Mr. Rowan again. Celeste smirked like she'd won. Finally, some sense. Lena's eyes remained on Evan, not Celeste. Tell him, Lena continued, that Lena Marlowe is downstairs, and tell him to bring the shareholder registry with him, not a summary. The full registry. Evan's face drained of color. Celeste's smirk faltered. What did you just say? Lena kept her tone calm, almost gentle. Call him, she repeated. Evan's hands shook as he reached for the phone. Celeste took a step forward, voice rising. No, what is this? What game are you playing? Shareholder registry? Who even says that? Who are you? Lena finally pulled her phone out, glanced at the screen, and for the first time, something flickered in her eyes. Not fear, but a tightening like a decision clicking into place. She put the phone back in her pocket without answering it. Then she looked at Celeste and spoke softly so only Celeste could hear. I'm the reason your husband has a job, Lena said. Celeste's face twitched. That's... The elevator chimed. Everyone turned. The executive elevator doors slid open with a polished whisper, and a man in a dark suit stepped out, flanked by two assistants who looked like they lived on caffeine and deadlines. Miles Rowan was tall, handsome in a corporate way, and moving too fast like he already believed the building belonged to his schedule. He was mid-sentence, speaking to one of the assistants, when his eyes landed on the lobby scene, on Celeste, on the frozen staff, on the orange splatter on the floor, and then on Lena. The moment he saw her, his entire body reacted before his mind could cover it. He stopped so abruptly, his assistant nearly collided with his back. His mouth opened, no sound came out, and the color drained from his face like someone had unplugged him. Celeste exhaled in relief, stepping forward with dramatic indignation. Miles, thank God. This woman, this filthy nobody, refused to leave. She mouthed off to me and… Miles didn't look at Celeste. He couldn't. His gaze stayed locked on Lena Marlowe, standing there soaked in juice, holding an unopened envelope like a weapon she hadn't chosen to use yet. His voice, when it finally came, was barely a whisper. Ugh. Lena? Lena's expression didn't soften. It hardened. Hello, Miles, she said. And then, with the quiet certainty of someone who had just reached the end of her patience, she added, we need to talk about what your wife thinks she owns. Miles Rowan's knees almost buckled. He caught himself at the last second, fingers tightening into fists at his sides, but the damage was already done. Everyone saw it. The flinch, the fear, the way his authority evaporated the moment Lena Marlowe spoke his name. Celeste noticed too. Miles? She said sharply, irritation slicing through her relief. Why are you just standing there? Tell them to get her out. She assaulted my reputation in front of everyone. Miles swallowed hard. His eyes never left Lena's face. The juice dripping from her sleeve onto the marble floor felt louder than thunder. Celeste, Miles said slowly, his voice cracking. What did you do? Celeste scoffed. What did I do? I defended your building. This woman was loitering in the VIP area like she belonged there. She was rude. She disrespected me. Miles finally turned his head toward his wife, and the look on his face stopped her mid-sentence. It wasn't anger, it was terror. You poured juice on her? He asked. Celeste rolled her eyes. Relax, it was orange juice, not acid. She'll dry. Miles sucked in a breath so sharp it hurt his chest. He turned back to Lena, his shoulders slumping as if gravity had suddenly doubled. He stopped, tried again. I didn't know you were coming today. Lena tilted her head slightly. That was intentional. Miles nodded, sweat breaking across his brow. Of course it was. Celeste stepped between them, planting herself squarely in Lena's space again. Miles, stop being dramatic. Who is this woman? Why is she acting like she runs the place? The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Miles closed his eyes for a moment, like a man bracing before stepping into traffic. Then he spoke. This is Lena Marlowe, he said hoarsely. Founder of Marlowe Consolidated Holdings, Celeste frowned. So? Miles's laugh came out broken. So, she owns this building. A murmur rippled through the lobby. Security stiffened. Evan's hand flew to his mouth. One of the assistants froze, eyes wide. Celeste laughed, high, brittle, disbelieving. That's not funny. Miles looked at her. I'm not joking. She shook her head, lips trembling now. No, you're lying. Look at her, she's wearing… She gestured vaguely at Lena's clothes like they offended her personally. That? Lena didn't react. She didn't need to. Miles took a step toward his wife, lowering his voice in a way that sounded like begging. Celeste, she owns Marlowe Consolidated, which means she owns the holding firm, which means she owns the property trust, which means she owns Vanta Spire. Celeste's smile slowly slid off her face. That's impossible, she whispered. I said I managed the building, Miles said, voice shaking. I never said I owned it. Celeste turned slowly toward Lena again. Her eyes scanned her from head to toe, desperately searching for a crack in reality. You? Celeste said. You expect me to believe you own everything my husband manages? Lena finally spoke, her voice quiet but carrying effortlessly across the room. I don't expect you to believe anything, she said. Belief is irrelevant. Ownership doesn't require permission. Celeste took a step back without realizing it. Then why do you look like that? Lena's lips curved slightly. Not a smile, something sharper. Because I can. Miles exhaled shakily and gestured toward the elevators. Lena, please. Let's not do this here. We can go upstairs, my office, or your office. Lena glanced at the crowd, the staff who had watched, the guards who had hesitated, the tenants who had recorded everything on their phones. No, she said. Miles blinked. No? I'm comfortable here, Lena replied. So is the truth, Celeste snapped. This is humiliating. Lena's gaze flicked to her. You humiliated yourself. Celeste's face twisted with fury and panic. You're enjoying this. No, Lena said calmly. I'm documenting it. She looked up at one of the black glass camera domes in the ceiling. Miles followed her gaze and visibly paled. Lena, he whispered. Please. Lena stepped closer to him now, lowering her voice so only he could hear. You built your career on my infrastructure, she said. You signed contracts with my money, and you let your wife treat my staff, and me, like dirt in a building that bears my assets. That's not a misunderstanding, Miles. That's negligence. Celeste lunged forward. Stop whispering! Say it to my face! Lena turned back to her, eyes cold. You assaulted me, Lena said. In front of witnesses, in a property you don't own, using authority you don't have. Celeste's hands clenched. You provoked me. Lena raised an eyebrow. By existing? Miles stepped between them instinctively. Celeste, stop talking. She stared at him like he'd betrayed her. You're choosing her over me? I'm choosing reality, Miles snapped. The words hit harder than the juice. Celeste's voice dropped to a trembling hiss. After everything I've done for you? Lena watched the exchange with clinical detachment, like a surgeon observing a failing organ. Enough, Lena said. Everyone stilled. She turned to Evan. Evan, do you have access to the incident logs? Evan nodded frantically. Yes. Good, Lena said. Preserve today's footage. Back it up off-site. I want copies. Miles looked like he was about to be sick. Lena, you don't need to— Yes, I do, Lena interrupted. Because this isn't just about me. She turned slightly, addressing the lobby now. This building employs over 600 people, Lena said. Janitorial staff, security, admin, people who don't have the luxury of screaming entitlement because someone didn't bow fast enough. Celeste shook her head, tears streaking her mascara now. You're making me look like a monster. You did that yourself, Lena replied. Miles ran a hand through his hair, desperation bleeding through his composure. What do you want? Lena studied him for a long moment. I want accountability, she said, and I want to know something first. She looked at Celeste. Who told you this building was yours? Celeste hesitated. Her eyes flicked to Miles. Lena noticed. Miles? Lena asked softly. Miles closed his eyes. Celeste's voice cracked. He said it was basically ours, that he ran everything, that ownership was just paperwork. Lena nodded slowly, like she'd expected the answer. That's what I thought. She reached into her tote bag again, and this time pulled out the envelope, sliding it onto the reception desk with deliberate care. Those, Lena said, are the updated control documents for Marlowe Consolidated's commercial properties, including this one. Miles stared at the envelope like it might explode. I was going to review your performance today, Lena continued, quietly, professionally. Her eyes returned to Celeste. You turned it into a public reckoning. Celeste's knees wobbled. You can't do this. We'll lose everything. Lena's voice softened, not with pity, but finality. You should have thought of that before you decided someone's worth based on how they dressed. She turned toward the elevators. Miles, Lena said without looking back, you're coming with me, now. Miles nodded immediately. Yes, of course. Celeste reached for him in panic. Miles! He pulled away. Stay, he said sharply. Don't make this worse. Celeste stood frozen as Lena walked toward the elevators, juice-stained but unbowed, the entire lobby parting for her like she owned the ground beneath their feet. Because she did. And everyone finally knew it. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft, final thud that sounded louder than it should have. Inside the mirrored car, the air felt compressed, thick with unsaid words and rising panic. Lena stood near the control panel, arms relaxed at her sides, damp fabric clinging to her skin. Orange juice had begun to dry, leaving faint, sticky patches along her sleeves. She didn't wipe them away. Miles stood 2 steps behind her, rigid as a man awaiting sentencing. His reflection stared back at him from every angle, sweat at his temples, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched so tightly it trembled. Neither of them spoke as the elevator began its ascent. 10 floors passed. 15. 20. Miles finally broke. "Lena," he said quietly, his voice cracking in a way it never had during board meetings or earnings calls. "I swear to you, I never told her she could treat people like that." Lena kept her eyes forward. "You didn't have to." "That's not fair," he said quickly, panic creeping into his tone. "You know how she is. She assumes." "That's the problem," Lena said calmly. "She assumes, and you let her." Miles swallowed. You didn't think it mattered," Lena finished, "because it wasn't happening to you." The elevator chimed softly as it passed another floor. Miles dragged a hand down his face. "She's never done something like that," he insisted weakly. Not, not like this." Lena turned her head just enough to look at him through the mirror. "She's done it before," Lena said, "just not to someone who could answer back." Miles flinched. "How would you even know?" he asked. Lena's gaze was steady. "Because people talk, and because I read every complaint that crosses my desk, even the ones filtered before they reach you." His shoulders sagged. "I trusted you," Miles said quietly. Lena turned fully now, facing him for the first time since they'd entered the elevator. "No," she corrected. "You trusted that I wouldn't show up." The elevator slowed. 30, 31. The executive floor. The doors opened onto a private corridor bathed in warm light, thick carpet muting every footstep. Lena stepped out first, her pace unhurried, as if she had all the time in the world. Miles followed, his shoes sinking into the plush floor like it was trying to hold him back. They reached the end of the hallway where a set of matte black double doors stood closed. No signage, no nameplates, only a discreet biometric panel glowing faintly. Miles stopped short. "That office," he began, voice tight. "I thought it was empty," Lena asked. He nodded. "That it was reserved for a future investor." Lena pressed her thumb to the panel. The doors unlocked with a quiet mechanical click. "I am the future investor," she said. The door swung open. Miles froze. The office beyond wasn't just luxurious, it was commanding. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city stretched out beneath them, sunlight glinting off glass and steel like a living circuit board. A massive desk of dark wood sat centered on a hand-woven rug. Behind it hung a piece of abstract art Miles recognized instantly. He'd once approved insurance paperwork for it without ever seeing it in person. Lena walked inside and set her tote bag down beside the desk. "Sit," she said. Miles didn't hesitate. He lowered himself into one of the leather chairs opposite the desk, hands gripping the armrests as if the furniture were the only thing anchoring him to reality. Lena didn't sit immediately. She walked to the window, looking out over the city she owned in pieces most people never realized were connected. "You know what today was supposed to be?" she asked quietly. Miles shook his head. "A surprise audit," Lena said. "No advance warning, no polished reports. I wanted to see how things actually run when no one's performing." She turned back to him. "And what I saw," she continued, "was entitlement wearing your name." Miles opened his mouth, then closed it again. "You blurred lines," Lena said. "You let your wife walk through my properties like she was royalty. You let staff believe her authority came from you. That's not just a personal failing, Miles. That's a corporate risk." "I never authorized her to." "Authorization isn't always explicit," Lena interrupted. "Sometimes it's silence." There was a knock at the door. Miles jumped. Lena didn't. "Come in," she said. The door opened, and Celeste stepped inside. She looked different now. Her perfect posture was gone. Her chin trembled despite her effort to hold it high. Her eyes were red-rimmed, mascara smudged in dark crescents beneath them. The confidence she'd worn like armor in the lobby had cracked, leaving something raw and frightened underneath. She stopped just inside the doorway, clutching her handbag like a lifeline. Lena finally took her seat behind the desk. "Close the door," Lena said. Celeste hesitated, then did as she was told. The sound of the door shutting echoed like a verdict. Lena folded her hands on the desk. "Sit." Celeste looked at Miles. He didn't meet her eyes. Slowly, stiffly, Celeste sat in the remaining chair. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Celeste broke. "You set me up," she said, voice shaking with anger and fear. "You wanted to humiliate me." Lena studied her. "I wanted to walk into my building unnoticed." Celeste laughed bitterly. "Then why dress like that?" Lena leaned back slightly. "Why not?" Celeste's lips parted, then pressed together. "You think wealth looks a certain way," Lena continued. "You think power announces itself. It doesn't." Celeste's voice dropped. "You enjoyed watching me fall." "No," Lena said. "I'm disappointed that you climbed so high without learning how to look down." Miles finally spoke. "Celeste, please." "Don't," Celeste snapped, turning on him. "Don't pretend this is just about me. You let me believe we were untouchable." Lena's eyes flicked to Miles. Celeste followed her gaze and stiffened. "You told me you ran everything," Celeste said accusingly. "You told me the owner was some faceless board. You let me believe—" "I never said that," Miles protested weakly. "You implied it," Celeste shot back. Lena raised a hand slightly. The argument died instantly. "This isn't marriage counseling," Lena said. "This is accountability." She leaned forward. "Celeste, do you understand what you did today?" Celeste crossed her arms defensively. "I spilled juice." "You assaulted someone," Lena corrected. "You abused perceived authority. You demeaned staff. And you did it publicly." Celeste scoffed. "You weren't hurt." "That's not the measure," Lena said. "Intent is—" Celeste's voice wavered. "What do you want from me?" Lena's gaze softened, not kindly, but thoughtfully. "I want you to understand something," she said. "You don't lose power when you show respect. You lose it when you confuse fear for loyalty." Celeste's hands shook. "And now?" Celeste whispered. Lena glanced at Miles. "That depends," Lena said, "on how honest your husband is willing to be." Miles stiffened. "About what?" "About how long this has been going on," Lena replied, "and how much of it you chose not to see." Miles looked between the two women, his career, his marriage, his life teetering on a single breath. And for the first time since Lena Marlowe walked into Vantaspire, he understood something with terrifying clarity. This wasn't a meeting. It was a reckoning. Miles stared at the desk as if it might give him answers. The city skyline reflected faintly in the polished wood between them, a distorted version of reality, glass-bending light, height-warping perspective. Lena watched him in silence, giving him just enough rope to decide whether he would climb or hang himself. Celeste broke first. "So that's it?" she demanded, her voice cracking but sharp. "You drag us up here like criminals and sit there like some judge. Over juice?" Lena's eyes lifted slowly to meet hers. "Over character." Celeste let out a humorless laugh. "You don't know me." "I know exactly who you showed yourself to be," Lena replied, "and who you thought you were allowed to be." Celeste turned to Miles again, desperation bleeding into anger. "Say something. Defend me." Miles opened his mouth, then closed it. His throat worked as he swallowed. "She didn't know who you were," he said finally, the words sounding hollow even to his own ears. "She made a mistake." Lena leaned back in her chair. "Ignorance isn't innocence, Miles. It's exposure." Celeste shot to her feet. "I didn't assault her. I didn't hit her. I didn't threaten her." "You humiliated her," Lena said calmly. "You tried to erase her. You decided she was disposable." Celeste's breath came fast. "You're exaggerating." Lena's gaze sharpened. "Tell me something, Celeste. If I had been a janitor, would this conversation be happening right now?" Celeste's lips parted. Silence answered for her. Miles squeezed his eyes shut. "That's what I thought," Lena said. Celeste's voice dropped, small now. I thought people like you always looked powerful." Lena smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "People like me learned early that looking powerful attracts unnecessary enemies." Celeste shook her head. "This isn't fair." "No," Lena agreed. "It's not." She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the desk. "But it is accurate." Miles finally looked up, eyes rimmed red. "Tell me what you want," he said again, quieter this time. "I'll do it." Lena studied him. "For years," she said, "you've been efficient, profitable, invisible. That's why I trusted you with this portfolio." Miles nodded slowly. But you confused invisibility with immunity, Lena continued. You thought because I wasn't present, I wasn't paying attention. I never. You let your wife act as an extension of your authority, Lena said. That's the truth, whether you admit it or not. Celeste spun toward him. You never stopped me. Miles flinched. That's enough, Lena said sharply. Both of them froze. I'm not interested in assigning blame to soothe egos, Lena said. I'm interested in preventing this from ever happening again. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a slim tablet, tapping the screen until a document appeared. She turned it so they could see. Celeste leaned forward despite herself. What is that? She asked. A choice, Lena said. Miles's heart pounded. What kind of choice? Lena's eyes met his. Option 1, she said. You resign, effective immediately. I announce it as a voluntary departure. You walk away with your reputation mostly intact. Celeste is permanently barred from all Marlowe consolidated properties. Celeste gasped. You can't. Lena held up a finger. Option 2. Celeste fell silent. You stay, Lena said. But your role changes. You lose executive authority. You report directly to my compliance team. Celeste undergoes mandatory conduct training and issues a public apology to the staff she's mistreated. Celeste's face burned. Public? Yes, Lena said. Public. Miles's hands trembled. And if I refuse both? Lena's expression didn't change. Then option 3 activates automatically, she said. I release today's footage, along with internal complaints, and initiate a formal investigation. Termination follows. Litigation may follow after that. Celeste's knees gave slightly. She sank back into her chair. You'd ruin us, she whispered. Lena tilted her head. You did that yourselves. Miles stared at the tablet, then at Lena, then at his wife. Celeste grabbed his arm. You can't let her do this. Think about us, about our life. Miles pulled his arm away slowly. Our life, he repeated, tasting the words. You poured juice on my boss in front of everyone. Celeste recoiled. I didn't know. That's the point, he said quietly. Lena watched the exchange, her expression unreadable. Miles took a shaky breath. If I resign, what happens to her? Lena didn't hesitate. She loses access. She keeps her name. That's more mercy than most people get. Celeste stared at Miles, eyes wide and wet. You'd choose her over me? Miles shook his head. I'm choosing reality. The same words as before, but this time, they sounded final. Celeste's shoulders collapsed inward. You're abandoning me, Lena interjected gently but firmly. No, he's accepting consequences. Celeste looked up at Lena, fury and shame twisting together. You enjoy this. Admit it. Lena considered the accusation. No, she said honestly. I enjoy clarity. She stood, circling the desk slowly. The damp marks from her clothes had begun to fade, but the memory hadn't. I grew up invisible, Lena said, voice steady. I know exactly how people behave when they think no one important is watching. Celeste's voice cracked. What do you want me to say? Lena stopped in front of her. I want you to say you understand, she said. Not that you're sorry. Understanding lasts longer. Celeste swallowed. I understand that I was wrong. Lena held her gaze. Why? Celeste hesitated, then whispered, because I thought power made me better. Lena nodded once. And now? Celeste's voice broke. Now I know it just made me louder. The room was silent again. Lena turned back to Miles. Your decision. Miles closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had shifted. Resignation, but also relief. I'll resign, he said. Celeste gasped. Miles. It's done, he said softly. I won't fight this. Lena inclined her head. You'll submit your letter by end of day. HR will handle the rest. Miles nodded. Thank you for the chance. Lena looked at him steadily. Don't thank me. Learn. She turned toward the door, then paused. Celeste, she said. Celeste looked up, eyes hollow. Power isn't inherited through marriage, Lena said. It's earned through conduct. Celeste said nothing. Lena opened the door and stepped out into the corridor, the city waiting beyond the glass. Behind her, a marriage cracked, and an empire quietly corrected itself. The news didn't break with an explosion. It rippled. By the time Lena stepped out of the executive elevator an hour later, her sweatshirt replaced with a clean blazer someone had fetched in silence, the building felt different, quieter, sharper, like everyone was listening for something they couldn't hear yet. Phones buzzed. Conversations stopped when she passed. She didn't acknowledge any of it. Lena crossed the lobby again, this time without anyone daring to block her path. The orange stains on the marble were gone, scrubbed so thoroughly the stone looked raw, but the memory hung in the air heavier than the citrus scent ever had. Evan stood rigid behind the reception desk, eyes wide, posture perfect. "Ms. Marlowe," he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "The footage has been secured. Backups are already uploaded." "Good," Lena replied. "Thank you for doing your job." His shoulders loosened a fraction at the words. As Lena reached the revolving doors, a voice cracked behind her. "Lena?" She stopped. Miles stood several feet away, no longer flanked by assistants. His tie was loosened. His posture sagged like a man whose bones had finally admitted exhaustion. "I submitted the letter," he said quietly. "Effective immediately." Lena turned to face him. "HR will be in touch." He nodded. "I know." There was something else in his eyes. Now. Not fear. Not ambition. Grief. "She doesn't understand yet," he added. "Celeste." Lena studied him for a moment. "She will." Miles let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. "You always were like this. Calm. Surgical." "That's how you survive," Lena said. He hesitated. "For what it's worth, I am sorry." Lena held his gaze. "I believe you." It was the only kindness she offered. She stepped through the revolving doors and out into the city heat. Outside, the noise rushed back in. Traffic, voices, horns, life. Lena paused on the sidewalk, letting the sun hit her face. She closed her eyes for just a second, grounding herself. Her phone vibrated again. This time, she answered. "Yes," she said. A voice on the other end spoke quickly. "We saw the internal alert. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Lena replied, "but I want a full audit expanded to all properties under Rowan's portfolio. Quietly." There was a pause. "Understood." Lena ended the call and slipped the phone back into her pocket. Across the street, in the reflective glass of Vantaspire, she saw her own image, composed, distant, untouchable. That night, the internet found out. It started with a 30-second clip posted by someone who'd been waiting for an elevator, grainy, vertical, poorly framed. But it showed everything that mattered. The juice, the silence, the shift. By midnight, it had millions of views. The comments exploded. She really thought she owned the place. Money doesn't buy class. That calm response gave me chills. Why do rich people always assume? By morning, every business blog had picked it up. Executive's wife assaults CEO without knowing it. Power without permission, a viral lesson. Quiet billionaire exposes loud entitlement. Names followed. Miles Rowan's resignation was announced before noon. Celeste's name trended by afternoon. She sat alone in the penthouse that evening, curtains drawn, phone face down on the marble counter like it might bite her. The silence pressed in from all sides. No assistants, no invitations, no messages from friends, only missed calls from people asking questions she didn't know how to answer. Her reflection in the darkened window looked unfamiliar, smaller. She replayed the moment over and over, the weight of the cup in her hand, the way she'd felt powerful as she tilted it, the shock in the room afterward, the way Lena had looked at her, not angry, measured. For the first time in years, Celeste wondered who she was without borrowed authority. Across the city, Lena sat in her apartment, barefoot on the balcony, city lights flickering below like a circuit board still humming. She scrolled through none of it. No comments, no headlines. Instead, she opened an old notebook, the kind she kept when decisions needed reflection. She wrote one sentence. Power is revealed in moments of inconvenience. She closed the notebook. Tomorrow she would meet with compliance, then legal, then operations. There would be fallout. There always was. But tonight she allowed herself one quiet breath, because the building stood taller than before, not because it had changed, but because the illusion had fallen, and everyone now knew exactly who owned the ground they stood on. The next morning didn't start with peace. It started with pressure. Lena woke before her alarm, the city still gray and undecided outside her windows. Her phone was already vibrating on the nightstand, not ringing, buzzing steadily like an anxious insect that refused to be ignored. She reached for it and skimmed the notifications without opening any of them. Legal, communications, board liaison, compliance, 3 unknown numbers. One message marked urgent. She exhaled slowly, then swung her legs out of bed. By the time Lena stepped into the underground parking garage beneath her building, she was fully armored again. Not in clothes, but in stillness. She slid into the driver's seat of her car, a modest sedan that never attracted a second glance, and pulled out into traffic like any other commuter. At Vantaspire, the crowd had doubled. News vans idled along the curb. A few reporters hovered behind temporary barriers, microphones already poised like spears. Someone had leaked the exact time Lena usually arrived. She didn't flinch. Security parted for her immediately this time. No hesitation, no confusion. Marcus stood straighter than she'd ever seen him. "Good morning, Ms. Marlowe," he said. "Good morning, Marcus," Lena replied, passing him. Inside, the lobby buzzed with a different kind of energy. Nervous, alert, hungry. People whispered. Phones dipped when she looked their way. Respect had replaced dismissal overnight, but it wasn't the kind Lena valued. She stopped at the reception desk. Evan nearly jumped out of his skin. "Ms. Marlowe, good morning. I prepared everything you asked for." "Thank you," Lena said. "You didn't have to rush." "I wanted to," Evan said quickly. "I mean, I thought it mattered." Lena met his eyes. "It does." The words seemed to settle into him, anchoring something. As Lena turned toward the elevators, she noticed someone standing off to the side of the lobby near the art installation. A woman in a tailored gray coat, hair pulled back tight, expression sharp enough to cut glass. Amara Klein. Lena slowed. Amara was head of communications for Marlowe Consolidated. Efficient, relentless. The kind of woman who could turn a scandal into a sermon if given enough time. "Did you sleep?" Amara asked without preamble. "A little," Lena replied. "That's a problem," Amara said, falling into step beside her. "This story isn't slowing down, it's mutating." The elevator doors closed behind them. Amara tapped her tablet, pulling up charts and heat, maps of attention. "Public sentiment is overwhelmingly on your side," Amara continued, "but the narrative is splintering. Some are framing this as a class revenge fantasy. Others are calling it performative cruelty." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Cruelty?" "Power correcting power," Amara said. "People don't always like being reminded who holds it." Lena leaned back against the elevator wall. "What do you recommend?" Amara smiled thinly. "We get ahead of it. You speak." Lena's eyes flicked to her. "No," Amara sighed. "Lena?" "I'm not turning this into a spectacle," Lena said. "I didn't show up to be seen." Amara studied her. "You were seen anyway." The elevator chimed. They stepped out onto a different floor than before, a conference level Lena rarely used, intentionally neutral. Inside the room, half the compliance team was already seated. Legal joined via screen, faces turned toward Lena like flowers tracking the sun. She took the seat at the head of the table without ceremony. "Let's begin," Lena said. The meeting was surgical. Reports were delivered, incidents logged, patterns identified. What had happened with Celeste wasn't isolated. It was symptomatic. A regional manager in another city had quietly let his brother oversee vendor contracts. A senior advisor's partner had been signing off on employee schedules. Influence bleeding where it didn't belong. Lena listened. Then she spoke. "This stops now," she said. "No spouses, no proxies, no assumed authority." A lawyer on the screen hesitated. "There may be pushback." Lena's gaze was steady. "Then we'll push harder." Silence followed. Not resistance, but acceptance. After the meeting, Amara lingered. "There's something else," she said. "Celeste Rowan is requesting a meeting." Lena didn't react immediately. "On what grounds?" "She says she wants to apologize," Amara replied. "Publicly." Lena considered that. "And privately?" she asked. Amara shook her head. "She wants control of the narrative." Lena exhaled softly. "Then she doesn't want forgiveness. She wants relevance." Amara nodded. "My thought exactly." "Decline," Lena said. but release a statement. What kind? Lena paused, then spoke carefully. One that isn't about her. The statement went live an hour later. It was short, measured, unemotional. Marlowe Consolidated reaffirmed its commitment to dignity, accountability, and zero tolerance for abuse of authority. Leadership changes were underway. Internal reviews ongoing. Respect non-negotiable. No names, no drama. The internet reacted anyway. Some praised the restraint. Others wanted blood. They always did. Across town, Celeste watched it unfold from behind dark sunglasses in the back of a car she no longer felt comfortable driving herself. Her phone buzzed constantly. Agents, former, friends, strangers offering interviews for a price. She ignored them all. Her lawyer sat beside her, tapping a pen against his notebook. They're not coming after you legally, he said. Not yet. Celeste stared out the window. They humiliated me. You humiliated yourself, he corrected gently. She flinched. What happens now? She asked. He hesitated. That depends on whether you learn. Celeste laughed bitterly. From what? Being powerless? He looked at her. From being human. Back at Vantaspire, Lena stood alone in the executive office, hands resting on the desk, city humming below. Amara's words echoed in her mind. You were seen anyway. Lena didn't crave visibility. She never had, but she understood its weight. Her phone buzzed once more. A message from an unknown number. You didn't have to destroy us. Lena stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she typed a reply. I didn't. You revealed yourselves. She set the phone down. The city reflected faintly in the glass. Power hadn't shifted that day. It had clarified, and the aftershocks were only beginning. The aftershocks came quietly at first. A contract quietly paused. A regional director suddenly retired. An invitation politely rescinded. Lena noticed the pattern the way she noticed everything, without drama, without commentary. Power didn't announce its corrections. It adjusted. 3 days after the incident, Lena sat in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the river, reviewing a performance report when Amara stepped in without knocking. That alone signaled urgency. We have a problem, Amara said. Lena didn't look up. Define problem. Amara slid a tablet across the table. Celeste Rowan went live last night? Lena's fingers stilled. Live? She asked. Podcast, Amara replied. Then a follow-up interview. She didn't name you directly, but she framed herself as a victim of hidden elites and silent billionaires playing God. Lena finally looked up. And it's gaining traction, Amara said. Not majority support, but enough noise to distort the narrative. Lena leaned back, considering. What's she asking for? Sympathy, relevance, a rewrite. Lena nodded slowly. Then she still doesn't understand. Amara hesitated. There's more. She tapped the screen again. A paused video frame appeared. Celeste, composed but strained, eyes glossy under studio lights. She claims Miles told her the building was functionally theirs, Amara said. She's implying misrepresentation, abuse of power within marriage. Lena exhaled through her nose. And Miles, he hasn't responded publicly, Amara said. But his attorney reached out this morning. Lena folded her hands. Let me guess. He wants to talk. Amara nodded. Privately. Lena was silent for a long moment. Schedule it, she said finally. One meeting. No cameras, no statements. Amara studied her. You don't owe them anything. I know, Lena replied. But clarity isn't just for the public. The meeting took place 2 days later in a neutral office. No skyline views, no intimidating art. Just a table, 4 chairs, and a quiet hum of air conditioning. Miles arrived first. He looked older. His suit fit the same, but something essential had loosened. Like the thread holding his confidence together had finally snapped. He stood when Lena entered. Thank you for agreeing to this, he said. Lena gestured for him to sit. Say what you came to say. He did. I failed, Miles said. As an executive, as a husband, and as a steward of power I didn't earn. Lena listened without interrupting. She believes I misled her, he continued. And I did. Not with lies, but with omission. I let her think influence was ownership. Lena's eyes remained steady. And now? And now she's spiraling, Miles said. She doesn't know who she is without the reflected authority. That's not my responsibility, Lena said. I know, Miles replied quickly. I'm not asking you to fix her. I'm asking you not to destroy her. Lena tilted her head slightly. Explain the difference. Miles swallowed. She's embarrassed. She's lashing out, but she's not malicious. Not at her core. Lena's gaze sharpened. Intent doesn't erase impact. No, Miles agreed. But mercy can shape outcomes. Silence settled between them. You want me to intervene, Lena said. I want you to stop the momentum, Miles replied. Let it fade. Lena leaned back. It will fade on its own. Public attention always does. Miles nodded, relief flickering. Then you won't. I won't escalate, Lena said. But I won't protect her from consequences she earns herself. Miles closed his eyes briefly. That's fair. As he stood to leave, he hesitated. For what it's worth, he said, she never learned how to be small. Or kind, or quiet. She thought those were weaknesses. Lena met his gaze. They're skills. After he left, Lena sat alone for a moment longer, staring at the empty chair across from her. That evening, she walked through Vantaspire again, not announced, not escorted. She watched as Marcus helped an elderly tenant with the door, as Evan corrected a billing error without panic, as a cleaner paused to greet her, not with fear but with recognition. The building breathed differently now. As Lena reached the center of the lobby, a woman stepped forward hesitantly. She wore a housekeeping uniform and held a folded piece of paper in her hands. Miss Marlowe? The woman asked softly. Yes? I just wanted to say, thank you, she said, for seeing us. Lena's chest tightened, unexpectedly. You were always seen, Lena replied. You just weren't believed? The woman smiled, eyes shining. We believe you. That night, another clip went viral, but this one was quieter. It showed Lena holding the lobby door open for a cleaner with a cart. No words, no confrontation, just a small human moment. The caption read, Power doesn't shout, it listens. The comments were different this time. She didn't even try to flex. That's real confidence. This is how leadership should look. Across the city, Celeste watched it on her phone, alone in a borrowed apartment that smelled like fresh paint and unfamiliar furniture. She paused the video on Lena's calm face. For the first time since the incident, Celeste didn't feel angry. She felt exposed, and somewhere deep beneath the defensiveness and denial, a thought surfaced. Quiet, unwelcome, unavoidable. What if the problem had never been Lena? What if the problem had been who Celeste became when she thought no one could stop her? The question lingered, and unlike the headlines, it refused to go away.